What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Morning Trill. I'm here with John, as usual.
Hello.
There's no one better or no one I'd rather be with than John.
Wow.
We were just talking about how I have an iPad, and I asked him, "Where's your iPad, John?" And this is his iPad. What is that? Does anybody do that anymore?
I had to write it in a notebook because my kids are on
How
my
do you
iPad.
do that?
So I use a pen.
What color? Does it matter?
Is Brew.
What? Oh, that's a cool one.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Nobody uses those anymore.
It's weird because the old, I had this years ago, like 4 years ago, and I have Bible studies in here from 4 years ago.
Wow, John.
And I'm like, man, dude,
wow.
I was such a kid.
Isn't that crazy? Technology and stuff, you don't see anybody. I don't really use it anymore either. Sometimes when I write, I like the way it feels like when I'm writing music or something,
Really?
like lyrics.
Yeah.
But usually I'm typing or something, or writing in my phone, or typing in my phone.
I usually do that too. I just type it, but this was kind of cool.
It is. It feels like,
I don't know why.
real, organic, feels something. I don't know. It's crazy. Anyways, use your notepad today. Get rid of your iPads and give them to us, and we will take care of them for you. Whoa.
Shots fired.
Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed that last episode as we talked about selfishness, and there was a lot of things that, that we mentioned in there. They're things that we struggle with.
Yeah.
They're things that we've gone through, or we can still go through as believers and followers, no matter how many years, no matter how long we've been a Christian. We all can fall victim of selfishness, and even some of the things we're going to share today. And I'm excited to talk about this one because it's actually in Scripture, and I know we're going to kind of base our conversation around this. But the title of this episode, we were talking about it over our business meeting.
Yeah.
Our super serious business meeting.
Yeah,
we were it was a serious one.
Yeah.
A lot of people were there.
Yeah. A lot of casualties.
Yeah. A lot of casualties. Anyway, and then we're deciding, we're like, man, we're talking about maybe we should talk about something like just how we do anything, right? We mentioned, and we always mention this in meetings that we have for church and stuff, is how we'll do everything else.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a good conversation. That's a good one to have. I've been kind of talking about that with Tatum and stuff, just how people don't take the little things seriously. And I was like, what should we name it? And I was like, anything and everything.
Wow.
Right? And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
So
the title of this episode is Anything and Everything.
Wow.
I just want to start it out with the scripture literally in Luke 16:10 that literally mentions what we're going to talk about. It's word for word. It says, Luke 16:10 says, "One who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much." That's crazy. You know what I mean? Because that's in the Bible, and it just shows you just the things of God. He wants to. We all have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that, and just and you asked me, do I do that? Honestly, you asked me, and I was like, well, yeah. but we all can do it, and it happens when we start fading with God. You notice that? Your passion, the strength to do these things, your ambition, it fades, and you become weary and tired and kind of annoyed with it and stuff, whatever that may be. But, you know?
For me, sometimes the feeling I have more is just, it's more like regret, because I've had so many opportunities to do things, and I don't know, dude, it sucks because I'm only 30, but I feel like I look back and I made so many mistakes already. I'm like, holy cow.
Dang, John.
I should have done this different,
Yeah.
But especially with things with God, there's so many opportunities I've had, so many things that I could have done differently in my life, different decisions, whatever it may be. And it's led me to the point in my life where I'm here now, where I'm just, in a sense, somewhat, I feel stuck sometimes because of the circumstances that I put myself in, you know? So.
Yeah. And I just love that scripture that I just shared. And it's just like, it's just something to ask with everything that we do, that we claim to be doing for God. You know, this is for us Christians, you know, for us to, this is his Bible saying, one who is faithful in very little will also be faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in very little will also be dishonest in much. It just shows, you know, like if we're doing it with the little things, like we mentioned earlier, how we do anything is how we'll do everything, you know? And it's something to ask yourself, am I being faithful? Am I giving my best to God with the little things? Meaning, obviously it's starting with us. That's spending time with him. I mean, they seem little, but they're huge. Those little things to us are huge in God's eyes, and can give us that strength that we need, give us the words that we need to say and to speak, and in direction, you know. Or are we being lazy with God's calling, or with what God has us, or our responsibilities, whether that be in church or leading a Bible study or helping youth, or being a husband, a spiritual husband, a spiritual wife, being a spiritual father, mother, whatever that may look like? Are we being lazy with it? Are we being lazy with family? Are we being lazy, or being, are we procrastinating with reaching out to people? Are we with, like I said, with our position, whatever that may be in church or whatever that is? Are we giving the very least, or the effort, you know what I mean, to these things for God? And we're claiming that we're saying they're for God, you know?
Yeah. And I think the word effort there is key.
Yeah.
You know, like, how much am I trying to do those things, right? Have lunch with somebody I haven't met yet at church, connecting with others, reading my Bible, personally, even like spending genuine time with my children, like where's that, you know, like, where's the effort in those things?
Yeah. And it's just a question that we ask ourselves, and we have to keep us in check, to make sure, like, man, am I doing that? Are we doing whatever we're supposed to be doing for God to the best of our ability, you know, the best that we can? That's what matters, you know. And I just feel like what you see a lot, we start out real strong and we do these things, or it takes something scary to kind of, oh, now I'll do this, or now I'll be this person I need to be for God, or for my wife or husband, or whatever that may be. But then later we fade, you know, we give half. We're just half doing it. You know what I mean? We're just sneaking by. We're getting by. Like, that's what I would do in school. Yeah. I would never study. I would never do my work. I'd never homework. But I knew I could just do enough to get by. If I got a D, I'm fine with it. You know what I mean? And what's wrong with that? But it doesn't do you. It teaches you exactly what that I just said. It teaches you just to do that amount. That's it. And you're pleased. And God's like, I want all of you. I want more of you. You know, I want you to give more. I want you to give more of your time to me first, you know. And God deserves our best, our everything, because he gave us his everything. He gave his son, you know. And we need to be faithful in these little things. And that's what counts. That's what counts. And because God was faithful in every area in our lives, you know, and giving his son, and Jesus is still faithful to us even when we're unfaithful. And we need to take advantage, you know, of that time right now. Yeah. You know, while we still have this chance of life, this chance, you know, before, you know, God forbid, but we don't know when we can go, or we don't know when Jesus is going to come back, you know. So that's just something to ask ourselves.
And how much of that should we strive for without feeling like, you know, I hear this phrase a lot, like, well, I can't be perfect, you know? Like, I can't live a perfect life. I can't perfectly serve. I can't perfectly do all this. I'm an imperfect person, right? How much of that is like a cop-out, you know, to get an excuse? So like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, we're not perfect. Yeah. Or or how much is it just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I remember I've had people say like, well, I can never do it. I can't be perfect, like you said. And you're like, and I always say like, you're exactly right. You can't, but God can, you know, and by his Spirit, we're able to do these things. That's how we keep going, you know, because when we start, and it's funny because I was actually just about to touch on that. I was just literally had in my notes, we're not going to be perfect. Of course we're not, but by his strength and doing the best, like the effort that God sees, it can be achieved. It can be. And in those moments where you're like, man, I'm feeling a little tired and weary, I just need a little, then that's when you're home, to spend that time alone with God, to kind of like recharge, you know, in his Spirit, and recharge, be like, okay, I feel good. You know what I mean? Like every fighter has a break in a round, you know, because they'd just be gassed, you know, but some of them, they need that encouragement, or they need that time. For us, you know, we might not get it all the time from people, but that's okay, because they're people. We need to get it from God, you know, because people are going to fail us. And yeah, we're not going to be perfect, but we're not able to do these things on our own. By his Spirit, we're able to keep doing these things. By his Spirit, we're able to be faithful in the small things and do our best that we can. And God sees our efforts. God sees our hearts.
Yeah.
He sees the motive of our hearts, and we're not fooling him. We can fool us, and wow, that person really means it. And then it changes, or something manifests, and it's like, wait, what happened? Like, I thought you were like totally into this or something, but God knows all along. He knew all along, or he does know where your heart's at, you know?
Yeah.
And he sees the effort, and he sees where your heart's at with that. And, you know, we always talk about, and if we start growing tired in ministry and weary and stressed and all these things, then we're starting to do it off of our own strength,
Yeah.
you know, or we're missing the fundamentals of being faithful to.
Yeah.
And that'll affect us with the ministry and the responsibilities that we have in our life, because it goes back to the basics. We're not doing them, you know. There's something about God and his simplicity, and how he always says he is simplicity, right? We mention all the time that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. So when we start feeling that yoke and we start feeling that burden and getting stressed, then that means we must be going like this from Christ.
Right.
Or we need to just recharge and come back and do the basics, you know?
Yeah. So I work in sales, right? And there's a lot like training after training that they've put us through.
Yeah.
And it's always like the training of like overcoming objections, like it was like what we spent a lot of time with. So what that means is, if a customer comes in, drives a car, likes the car, everything works out, price is good, color's good, everything's good, but then they still don't buy it, right? Our job is to pinpoint what that one thing is that's stopping them and pulling that out, you know. And sometimes like I evaluate people like myself, or I have family members who kind of go through that stuff as well too. Like they have this calling in their lives to go and be in ministry in some way or another. And they can talk the talk of like, hey, I'm this, I'm that, or I know this much and I can preach this much and everything like that. But when it comes down to it, they never pull the trigger. Yeah. You know? So that's just something like I noticed too with striving for this. It's kind of where I sit right now. Yeah. Which I'm struggling with, is because, you know, I definitely feel called to like do more. And I've got all the tools and everything at my disposal, but I just haven't pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
And it sucks because like I can come up with so many excuses. Yeah. You know, but I don't know.
And like you said, sometimes it's just doing it, you know. Sometimes it's just doing it, and that's where God's like, we wonder why, like, how come he hasn't, but I want to be that, or I want to do that, and it's just not working. Or when every time you have tried it, you fade or you fall, or you're like, I can't do this. And it's like, because God wants to see it starts with the little things. You have to start somewhere. You can't just go from here to there. to these big responsibilities and these, because God knows you, and then you have no foundation.
Right.
You have no fundamentals. You don't have the basics to be like, when something goes wrong in the bigger things, to come back to the basics, to the fundamentals. When you can't do that with the little things, there's no way.
Nope.
There's no way. The fall will be harder.
Yeah.
It'll be bigger, and it'll be even more tough on your heart and to come back, and people always say, well, sometimes I'll just wait for that, right? And then we'll see what happens, or I'll wait till I fall. That's how you learn. Well, you don't want to set yourself up for disaster either. God wants to do it the right way. That's the awesome thing about God. Mm-hmm. It's what we can handle, and he gives it to us like that. And when we start feeling like we can't, that's when we're handling it and we're carrying it. In 2 Timothy 2:15 and 16, it says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. Verse 16 says, avoid godless chatter, because those who indulge in it will become more and more ungodly. Sometimes these things that we talk about, that chatter, man, that can be like, oh, that's too much. You're fine. Nobody can be perfect. Yeah. Just, you need to loosen up, have fun. And you need your time, in this. And so go have fun. Like when you hang around people who that's their focus, that can affect you, and that can pull you away from God. When God is actually, he's sanctification. He wants to bring you out of the norm and take you and prune you and mold you and fix you and have you start with the small things, and it says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved in anything that we do, the big things, the little things. And that's the theme of what we're talking about. But it says, do your best. God sees the motive. God sees. And if sometimes things they'll fall, but you're not going to be like, this ain't for me, and then quit. God will see your heart, that zeal, that determination, be like, okay, it's not this, God, back to the drawing board. Or God's, like where he sees your faithfulness. And I just think it's awesome. And when it says a worker you're not ashamed of your work. You're not ashamed of what you're doing for God, and who correctly handles the word of truth. Meaning you're telling people truths correctly by his word. And, I don't know. I just think it's awesome because God it has it for us there, like it is very simplistic. And when we make things harder than they are, that's when the things around us and our position, our responsibilities, our call becomes hard and confused. Confusion sets in, and then you start doubting. Yeah. Right? Some people even start doubting God. Is he real? Do I believe in what you know what I mean? Like, or am I even supposed to be doing this anymore? Maybe I'll just go get a regular 9-to-5 job. Like, and that's how it starts. And it's kind of scary because it happens so fast when we're not with God. It can happen so fast. A bad week, it could be a stressful week, and then you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. And you just stop. And Satan's like, nice. I got you away from helping people, about telling them about God and stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's crazy. Like, it's just, you think about all these, like I had written down all these people, like, these men of faith, right? Mm-hmm. So Abraham with Hagar, he didn't believe, he doubted. Moses got angry and hit a rock. Not the rock. Not Dwayne Johnson. No. David with Bathsheba, having that sketchy thing that he did. Peter with denying Jesus, and that's something for me, like where I was looking through all these people, I'm like, man, like these are, men that are known for being these,
significant in the Bible. Yeah.
And they're struggling with the same things that we are here today, and an example of what happens. And luckily for us, we have Jesus who can cover us and protect us from like those kind of sins. Unlike then, they were taken care of right away.
Yes, yeah.
Which we're still going to face that God one day.
Yeah, but we have mercy now.
Yeah. But a question I ask myself is like, why do I continue to stay in those roots? Like, why do I do that? Like, I know better, right?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Should have put it by the mic and did it.
Do you like that?
Yeah, that sounded cool.
So I definitely know better, but like, man, like what, as an example, I play the bass at church.
Yep.
I'm helping lead Bible studies, and doing the morning trail here with you and stuff. And how many times in my life do I just present myself to this work that God has in front of me with just not 100%, like when it comes to preparing for messages or preparing for this or learning my parts and learning my songs, like showing up at church late, to set up and things like that. Like how much of it is just like, it's good enough, right? Like how do people continue to live in that, and how does that affect others? You know what I mean?
Around you. Yeah. That's true. And like you said, to continue to live in that's like when you really want something, you go after it.
Yeah.
When we really want that job, when we really want that new phone, when we really want that pair of shoes, we find a way, right? And it's just like a question to our hearts to be like, God, do I really want you? Do I really want the things of you? To be like, because if I really did, I would chase you. I'd pursue you, right? God says, knock on the door.
Yeah.
And I'll open it. Seek and you shall find. Are we actually seeking? Are we actually doing the fundamentals, reading, praying, worshiping, trusting in like God? You know what I mean? Like, because if we really are, I know my Jesus, we know our God, he'll always pull through. He'll always give us that peace, that strength that we need. Like, and it's just like to remain in that. If we really want that, we will. Because anybody who wants to remain in anger and stuff, and they really want anger and revenge, they'll seek it and they'll find it, or they'll be determined to stay in it. And they'll see people walk around, why are you so angry? Because of this. And they're like, and I am going to stay angry, right? You hear things like that. I'm going to take this to my grave. You're like, whoa, because that's their heart though. That's they're set on this. And are we set on Christ? Are we set on finding that heart for the little things and set on hand to be like, God, I just want to give my best for you. And in order for me to do this, I have to pursue you.
Yeah.
I have to. I'm going to share one more scripture. I really like this. I was looking up a lot of versions, and obviously I really like the King James Version, New King James Version. And, but I really like this Amplified Version real quick that they kind of really went more in depth with it, but it's Philippians 2:13. It says, for it is not your strength, but it is God who is effectively at work in you, both to will and to work. That is strengthening, energizing, and creating in you the longing and the ability to fulfill your purpose for his good pleasure. It's God. None of us. We can't. We'll always give 50%. We'll always give 10%. We'll always give 30% to him in everything that we do if we're truly not seeking him. Because if his word says, for it is not your strength, our strength, it is God's, who is effectively at work in you. I believe it then. And then if I am truly spending my time, I won't grow weary. I won't give 50. I won't give 40. I won't give 80. I'll give 100, because it's his strength, not ours, not our smarts, not our words and stuff like that. It should be his, out of passion, because we want to, just like a relationship in the beginning. You do everything that you can, whatever they want. You'll dress, you'll buy, you'll talk, you'll drive, you'll do whatever to make sure that you show them and that you find that love back.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the way we should be doing it with Christ. That we should be doing, we'll drive anywhere, we'll move anywhere, we'll do whatever it takes, sacrifice whatever we need to sacrifice, because we love him so much. And we know that he loves us, and he loved us first, Yeah.
So what stems out of that if we have a life built like that?
Man, well, there's a whole lot of stuff like that stems out. Not only the fruits of the spirit, you know what I mean? Like love, joy, peace, patience, long suffering, temperance. Those are things that that those fruits birth out and stem from that. Fruits stemming, you know what I mean? Isn't that crazy? But
side note, I
yes.
saw this sticker on Instagram from this Christian company.
Yeah.
It's like really aggressive bear, but he's holding a pineapple.
Bear fruit.
Yeah. Dude, it's freaking funny. I was
Dude, we
laughing
got to get
so
some of those. Dude, we should do those and give them away.
Yeah.
That's cool. But that's what stems from just, and I'm actually going to get into this first. I'm getting to it with the loving God and loving people and why it's in that order for a reason. Because when we are in him, these things are birthed. We become more Christ-like, like I just listed the fruits of the Spirit. And if we're not, read the verses before Galatians 5:22. There's other things that stem out, and that's works of the flesh. Selfishness, greed, anger, pride, all these things. Something is going to birth, whether you're in or you're out of his word, things will birth, and that's just the awesome thing about being in Christ. We have joy in times when it's hard. We have peace in our calling or in our position. We have zeal. We have these things because of God.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just real quick talk about Moses. I love this example because he had to start with the little things, but this process that he had to go through, the life he was living, who he thought he was. And there was just something missing, and then he finds out truths, and he runs away, and he's all alone in the desert, and he had to be sanctified, and he just was down to nothing, so that God could have his everything, And then he starts with sheep, leading sheep. He's a shepherd and all these things, and who knew that God he didn't think about it at that time. We read the story, we know it, but at that time to just be like, to trust God with, I'm helping sheep. I'm out here and these dumb sheep are running around. I've got to keep them in line, And then he has that awesome encounter with God, the burning bush. And like, that is crazy. And I know this is old and kind of cheesy, but I absolutely love that animation, Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
Like, I think it does such an awesome job of displaying like what it would kind of be like. Maybe not as close as probably the experience, but just it does a good job to capture it for us, even though it's a cartoon. But and it's just these things where he's like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do this. Me? Like, I can't even talk. Like, Moses had a hard time speaking, the Bible says. Like, but God's like, I will give you the words. I will show you. Like this verse says, not you, it's me. Right. And then from guiding and leading sheep and helping the flock, he led God's people out of Egypt, or from Pharaoh, out of slavery. Holy cow, like, whoa, I did not see that coming. We don't know what God has in store for you, for us in the future, but we delay it. We delay it because we're not faithful with the little things. We're not happy with where we're at. God, this is where I'm at. You know what I mean? Serving a little church where nobody even comes sometimes. Like, that's not even faithful in that. God's like, how can I give you more when you can't even love me for the little things? You know what I mean? And like, I think of that, and we have to start somewhere. We have to find that contentment, that heart with Christ, and that passion with the small things before we can do the things that God has for us. Like we mentioned, I think it was last episode, where it's not our works that produce our faith. It's our faith that produces our works, that God gives. I can give you this now. I see your heart, your motive. You're ready for this. You're ready for this stuff. And we just can't expect to jump over everything, because when we do, and you kind of see that ministry when somebody's put in a position of leadership real quick, you're like, ooh, not that you're better, we think, but I don't know if they're ready for that. What happens down the line? They quit. They quit, or they fade, and it starts showing on them. Tell me this. You start, every time you see them, I'm just tired. I'm tired. Why? We're supposed to have joy. Jesus, what? Like, we're not acting like we're living. I was just having coffee with an individual. I said, we all claim that we've been saved and all these things and that stuff, and we can't even show excitement in the little things and joy with worship, joy in our prayer, joy in our life and our walk. How the heck are we going to have it playing music playing? How are we going to have it preaching? How are we going to have it leading a Bible study? We don't even have it in our life. Man, that like just really takes things in perspective, you know? And for me, it's like, man, I don't want to be that. God, and if I am, forgive me, you know? And that's what we were saying earlier. That's what's awesome about right now. We have that opportunity. And if you guys are listening, you have that now. Say, God, I'm sorry for doing this. And if I am, God, forgive me. And I want that right heart.
Yeah.
I want that heart of Moses. I want that heart of David. And even though he went through what he went through, and all these people like Peter chopping ears off and like denying Jesus 3 times, like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But they fought and they believed and trusted God and humbled themselves, you know?
And that forgiveness part is kind of what brought me to kind of what I researched a little bit about the Cain and Abel, the story of Cain and Abel. Like I was telling you earlier, every time I say those names, now I think of that movie, Year One. I don't know why.
Don't watch that movie. It's a bad movie.
It's bad, so bad.
We're sinners.
Oh man, it was before.
But
Yep.
What he's talking about, real quick, is there's a scene in that movie where these 2 cavemen, whatever, Jack Black and Michael Cera, come across Cain and Abel in the movie.
Yeah.
And then they show the scene where Cain's hitting him with a rock, and then he keeps saying, "What have I done?" And then Abel's like, and he hits him again. He's like, "What have I continued to do?" And then he gets up again and he hits him again. He goes, "What have I done some more?" Anyway,
but so the story of Cain and Abel, you know, they were born of Adam and Eve, sons, brought God a sacrifice.
Sons of a guns.
God totally loved Abel's sacrifice, wasn't a big fan of Cain's. And I had asked myself, like, you know, that same question, like, okay, where do I fit here with my, obviously I'm not sacrificing animals or anything, but what is my offering to God, right? What does that look like? And
sacrifice,
a few things, like there's a quality of my sacrifice, a quality of what I give Jesus. Like, am I approaching Jesus, like showing up late and like, you know what I mean? Like I said earlier, not preparing, like, you know what I mean? Like, is my attitude very like, I guess I have to do this. Like, I don't have a choice. There's nobody else who can help. Like, what's my attitude on
burden.
that? This one really hit me. Was like the indifference or like the carelessness, you know, like sometimes I find myself like, I'm really good at like, if I'm going to plan for a trip or something that I'm really excited about, I'm all prepped to go. Right.
Dang. Yeah.
But like, do I care enough for like God and like the people and my responsibilities to like do that with his work too, you know?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what we've seen too in the years that we've been like doing ministry together is just the wrong motives.
Yeah.
People get up on that stage with us sometimes
or not starting with the things first they need to start with before going out, you know, like meaning there's still things wrong at home or with your marriage. Again, not that you're going to have some perfect marriage and be walking around. Of course you're going to fight, of course. But then there is things that need to be dealt with that are affecting you. Yeah. That, like we're saying, you have to start with the things first around you, you know, the little things. And
God first too, you know?
Yeah. And that's so true. And kind of what I had, I guess, coming close to closing, but what was I going to share? If you don't know where to start, like if you're asking yourself right now, like, where do I start then? Like, just to kind of go over it again, I want to have that heart to be faithful in the little things. And like we just mentioned, you led into it starts with God. Mm-hmm. It starts with our individual relationship with Him, to be faithful and to be honest with that first, with Him, and to be doing those things. And then your family, whatever that may look like. If you're single, then those around you. If you're able, some family situations, I understand, you know, or if you're a husband or a father or a wife or a mother, whatever that may look like around you. And then it reaches to those around us, the people, your coworkers, and these things. Like, it's just order. God's a God of order, you know. And what I mentioned earlier, God has those two things in that order for a reason: to love God and then to love people. You know, because that's how the order should be. We need to be with him first. We need to find that love for him, that worth in him, that boldness, and that, you know, through him, then we're able to do these things.
Yeah.
If we don't even care about a relationship with God, we're not ready for anything else, you know?
Yeah. And that's, you know, not to interrupt you, but like I feel like there's so many people where that's where it ends with their walk with Jesus.
Yeah.
That's where like they just can't get past that wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm good
Yeah.
with God, but that's it. There's nothing more
Yeah.
for others, for the church and people in your church. That's the scary thing too. It's not even like others anymore, John, like reaching out to people who literally don't know what church is. They don't really have gone to church. They can't even do it within their own body and their own church family.
Yeah.
They can't even do it with their intermediate family, but yet they're claiming and all these things. I'm this, I'm a worship leader, I'm a pastor, I'm this, but you can't even.
Yeah. And quite frankly, dude, like I've even seen people who can't even do it within their own family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which sucks.
And that's kind of scary. And sometimes we wonder why we almost stop believing in God, and we wonder why we start doubting him. Like everything I've learned, is it even true? Like, because we had no foundation. Mm-hmm. We had nothing. We thought we did, but like I shared in the last episode, what foundation do we have? The rock or sand? Which one do you have? And it will show. It will show. And above being a worship leader, a pastor, a youth pastor, a greeter, missionary, or whatever the position is, father, whatever, God only calls us to two things. And that's to love him and to love people. Start with the basics. Look at the things that you're doing that you might be complaining about right now, and that you're in, whether that be through your church or whatever ministry. And you're like, oh, this is so stupid. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Well, that's no attitude. God's like, I can't put you up there like that. That's selfishness. That's pride, you know. But take a look at where you're at. Take it seriously. Have a heart. Have your heart break for the children. I love that message by David Wilkerson called Anguish. That message is so, man, it's powerful, dude. And maybe I'll put it below in the link. And it just talks about how everybody has all these good ideas, John. All these things for church and people and this. But there's no anguish behind it. No suffering that they've gone through to have this passion to be like, people need Jesus. People are going to go to hell if they don't find Jesus. We could go to hell if we don't find Jesus. You know, these things. And just this true passion comes from anguish, from brokenness. Look at David. Look at Moses. Mm-hmm. Look at their stories. The people we love. Oh, man, we love their stories. And Moses in the Red Sea. And yeah, you know what happened after that? Like you said, he struck a rock. His people were complaining. He goes up to the mountain. They're building golden calves and stuff. Like, look at this stuff. And then he's just like, oh, but that passion comes from that. David cheating, adultery, knocking the lady up. Murder. And then he sends her husband to go die in battle. Like, wow, those are some hardcore things, but passion comes out of them. The impossible happens because that's who God is. And it's just a reminder for ourselves. And if you're complaining in this, God ain't complaining. He's not a complainer, and God isn't worry. God isn't doubt. God isn't anger. God isn't
stress.
No. Yeah. And if we're going through those, that means we got to get back to the basics. We got to be faithful with the little things. Yeah. Whether it's greet the snot out of people. Hug them. Do it for Jesus to the best that you can. You know, be yourself through Christ. But whether that's playing the bass, then slap the bass.
I will slap it.
Whether it's singing, whether it's doing announcements, whether it's helping children, whether it's babysitting, whether it's whatever you're doing for Christ, do it to the best of your ability. Do it for God, to glorify him. And watch. God sees, and he's like, you're ready. Because I see you seeking me, the giver, and not the gift. Yeah. That's the most important thing to remember, that he deserves our best. Yeah. Because he gave us his best, you know?
No, that's good.
And we owe our lives. You know, my dad would always say, it's all about a sacrifice. Everything that we do. You're going to be anything of God. The things of God comes with sacrifice, whether that be your time, family, friends, job, money. It's gonna happen. Why? Because God sent his son. He knows, and we sit here and be like, oh, he doesn't know what it's like in this. Yeah, he does. He sent his son to die for our stupid mistakes, our sin that we continue to fall into, that we continue to do. And I'm guilty of it too. And it makes you like mad at yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you idiot. If I could just hop out of my own body and beat myself up, you know what I mean? Like, and it just, it makes you have like, it's for a believer, it's not guilt, but a conviction to be like, oh man, like, I need to change it. Like your parents when they, when you do something wrong, you're like, you put your head down and you're like, I'm sorry. I need to change it. I'm so sorry, and that's okay, because that reveals us to us, things that we need to change. People don't like that anymore, that correction. But parents do that to their children because they love them, because they want to teach them the right way. They don't want them to grow up like that. And that's the same with God. He knows what's best for us,
Yeah.
But it's good,
Yeah, that was convicting.
To challenge ourselves and even what we do as worship leader, as this podcast, as teaching youth, to be like, man, God, if I've fallen into that and some of these things, and I can say I need to change that. That's for us. That's for you and your marriage. That's you being a father to your daughter, or a mother to your daughter, son, whatever that may look like. Are you fading? Are you complaining? Are you wanting something bigger? It's not good. You're going to lose yourself. You're going to lose yourself. Man. And anything else you got, John? Anything else you want to add, dude?
Just stay focused. You know what I mean? Like, stay focused on where you're at. Don't be, and if some close friends who God will take them somewhere and they're already looking for where God's taking them next after this, or they finally get what they want. I want to move to Alaska. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then, I have family members who actually moved there recently. And now they just moved down south somewhere, like Georgia or something like that. But like talking with them when I went to visit and getting to know them a little bit, they're my wife's family, but my cousins and stuff. They're super excited to be there. And then when the work got tough, they complained, they moaned, they found excuses, and they found a way to get out of there. Yeah. Went to Georgia, and it's still not, you know what I mean? Like, don't be that way. Just focus on what's right in front of you, man. Like,
don't be in the moment kind of people where you're in it, and then you fade. And I love what David Wilkerson said. He said, it's like fireworks. It's nice and flashy. It's a big bang and it's exciting, and then it's gone. Don't do that for Christ, And it's like, is that where you're supposed to be then? Because you have a pattern of repeating this. And it's the same story, the same. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, then stop.
Yeah.
And get back to God. Like, God, I don't want to move until you tell me to move. I'm going to continue to be right here with my family until we go. Yeah. You tell me to go. So.
And the other part too, that I think this is what like stemmed this whole topic, was how much this has convicted me. I even talked to you about it when we were like playing Apex.
In a business meeting.
I was like, bro, like when your dad said that, I was like, oh snap. I like thought about all the times as a kid where I cut corners, like I remember, like, you have a rug here. I used to sweep everything underneath the rug.
Oh my gosh!
At home,
when you clean your room, you just shove your clothes in the closet.
And then when we'd move, they'd lift the rug and be like, "Oh my gosh!"
Isn't that crazy? It's funny how you're saying that, though. I know it's funny, but what happens when you walk in that room? It's clean.
It looks good, right?
What happens when you walk in? Wow, Joe, you picked up your clothes. Yeah. But then what happens when God gets to the root?
Yeah.
When he reveals, it's like, oh, that's what's been there. That's so true. That's crazy how you brought that up.
That's how I am, man. Like, it sucks because like I've done that my whole life, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Oh, especially like, goon. I don't know why I always think this, but I always think of my kids too. I'm like, am I gonna show them and implant that seed in them to do that as well? Yeah. Like, because I've seen Ruby
and the people around us too,
Yeah.
People who look to us, and not that we're anything special, but people that, that come to church and they love talking with us about God, like, then they see how we do things. Like, oh, that's how we do them, innocently, not like everybody's like that, but I'm just saying, like, you have an influence on people around you at work, and you don't know who's watching, and that's so true for all of us. For me too, I can let my anger cloud my passion, towards people and stuff, and then I'm not focused. And that's the same thing, not being faithful and right in the little things. And so it's a good challenge for all of us and for you watching. And anything and everything. The way you do anything is the way you'll do everything else. I've heard that phrase hundreds of times growing up from my father as a kid, over and over and over and over. If you're going to do something, do it right. Don't do it 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. You do it the right way. And that's the same thing with God. Luke 16:10, when he says, faithful in the little things, you'll be faithful in the big things. And it's just an encouragement for you guys to step up, or if you know what to do it. And if you don't, now you do. And where to start? Start with you and God. Start with being faithful in reading. Start with being faithful in worship and praying, and just start with that out of passion, not out of like a chore or like a job. Out of passion, because you want to. Because when you really love somebody, you go after them. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, SoundCloud, iTunes, all the good stuff. Share the video, please share it. Tell people about this. We appreciate all the likes that we've been getting on our Facebook page lately, because I figured out how to invite everybody, cool. Send the invite out, and a lot of people have been following it, so that's awesome. I appreciate you guys so much. That's about it. You got anything else?
No, man.
Nothing
else?
That's good.
That's it.
That's it. We're done. Have a good weekend, and we will see you next week. Peace out.
Laters.